Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Tuesdays with Titans. Today we'll be speaking with Meike van Ginneken, who is the Water Envoy for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. She's renowned for her tireless efforts in raising awareness on various water issues, building international coalitions and sharing invaluable knowledge to ensure a water secure future. She is a former UN Assistant Secretary General at the International Fund for the Agricultural Development, former CEO of SNV Netherlands Development Organisation. Her extensive work and dedication has made her a pivotal figure in the water sector globally. Hello Meike, so welcome to Tuesdays with Titans, and it's an honor for us to know and interact with you.
It's my pleasure to be here.
So we would like to start by talking about Netherlands. Netherlands is renowned when it comes to the water management. So can you please elaborate on the kind of historical events and innovations that have made and shaped Dutch water management system?
So if you go back to the history of water management in the Netherlands, 800 years ago, groups of farmers came together and started water boards. Because they knew that water protection, water safety, water security is a public good and that you need to come together to manage it. So they started those water boards, and that's still one tier of government. It's in between municipalities and provinces. And it's a democracy. We actually have little congresses in these water boards. What's not so nice is that it took us 750 years to actually elect the first woman on the water board. And since 50 years, it's more diverse. We have both men and women there. So if you think about the Netherlands in more recent times, you actually see that a few big floods have actually shaped our water management. In 1953, we had a large flood coming from the sea, which killed 2,000 people. And after 1953, we made a plan to do coastal protection, and we built what's called the Delta Works. Very large concrete structures to keep out the sea so that we didn't have a flood anymore. It took us 50 years to complete those Delta Works, so they're only finished towards the end of the 20th century. What we then saw in the 1990s is actually that while we had good coastal protection, we got floods from the river Rhine and the river Meuse. And what we realized then is that infrastructure alone is not enough anymore. For thousands of years, we just drained the water. We built dikes and got the water out as soon as possible. Since the 1990s, we're giving some room back to the water. We're giving room to our rivers, we're protecting our wetlands, and we're making sure that we have sufficient storage capacity so that excessive rain doesn't immediately cause floods, but also that we save some water for dry spells in the summer. I think the last part was a near flood only a few years ago. And again we said, okay, what we're doing now is not sufficient. We need to take a broader approach. And last year our Parliament adopted a law which makes water and soil considerations guiding principles of our spatial planning. What does that mean? Every time a mayor or a governor or an individual or a company wants to plan a new industry, a new neighborhood or a new farm, we actually first look at water. Is there enough water available to have this economic activity? Are the flood risks not too high? Because that we know that with climate change, not everything is possible everywhere anymore. So we have good infrastructure, we give room to our water, room to our rivers, and work with nature, and we make sure that water is central to our spatial planning.
What is Netherlands International Water Ambition? How was it conceived, and what was the impetus behind forming this?
In the Netherlands, like many countries, we have a number of ministries that are involved in water management. And internationally, that's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Water, Ministry of Agriculture, but for instance also the Ministry of Climate. And what we saw in the past is that all these ministries with our embassies were doing separate projects overseas. So a few years ago, these ministries came together and wrote the Netherlands International Water Ambition, where we committed with all these ministries to do one program. and to work with India on a strategic water partnership, but also with other countries. So the Netherlands International Water Ambition is a whole of government program so that we interact with other countries on water in an integrated way so that we can provide good entry points for our know-how and not all go by ourselves and contradict each other.
So can you highlight some of the key projects or initiatives under Netherlands International Water Ambition?
One thing we're very proud of is that in 2023 we actually co-organized together with the Republic of Tajikistan the first UN Water Conference in over 40 years. Because we think that water should be higher on the political agenda, both nationally but also at the UN, at the World Bank and other multilateral institutions. So we're very proud that we made that a success and that we now have a water action agenda where more than 800 parties have made commitment for water action agenda. But we also work bilaterally. So we work with 7 Delta countries, India is one of them, and we really look together with our embassy here in Delhi how we can make sure that all the resources of the Dutch government are used in a coordinated way, and we also work with our universities, with our civil society and with our companies to make sure that we help India in developing and managing their water resources with the best Dutch knowledge we can make available. The 2030 agenda and the Paris Climate Accords are very much the basis of our national Netherlands International Water Ambition, because that's the framework that all countries have agreed on to fight poverty, to fight hunger, but also to manage our water resources. I think if you think about what we see happening now is that we're very happy that more people in the world, including in India, are getting safe water, drinking water at home, they're getting better sanitation, and I think there's a lot of progress to be seen. We see countries cooperating on transboundary basins, but we also see a lot of new challenges, and I think one of the biggest new challenges is climate change. Because people experience climate change through water. They experience climate change because their home floods, or because their harvest fails because the rain is late. So I think one of the long-term visions we also have is to make water the engine of climate adaptation, because that's how we need to face the challenges of this generation.
How can the international collaborations like SWP can help us fight the climatic challenges and the water challenges arising due to the water issues?
I think first of all, to make water the engine of climate adaptation, we need to do 3 things. And I see these challenges and these combination of solutions in many of the countries I visit, and I think they're also valuable for India. The first thing we need to do is we need to make the best engineering and technology available to everybody. And I think there's a lot of engineering and technology knowledge in India, but we're also happy to share our engineering experience with India. The second thing we need to do is we need to protect and restore our water buffers in nature. 99% of water storage capacity is actually in nature. It's in our aquifers, in our wetlands, in our lakes. And we have really destroyed a lot of these natural water buffers. No, I mean, worldwide, in the past 40 years, 30% of wetlands have been destroyed. You also in India see the groundwater depletion. And the third thing we need to do is we need to make water central to our spatial planning, our economic planning, because we need to realize not everything is possible everywhere anymore. We cannot build cities in floodplains. We cannot grow avocados in the desert, and we really need to make water central to our planning exercise. Cooperation is important here because we all have new challenges and we don't want to reinvent the wheel everywhere. So for instance, we can come with knowledge here on coastal protection, on basin management, and on how we use data to plan our water resources. But we can also learn a lot. For instance, you see Dutch universities working with Indian universities on, for instance, modeling the Brahmaputra or the Ganga. These are big rivers, very complex systems. And these universities will come back to the Netherlands and actually work on the River Rhine or the River Meuse. And they will do a much better job because they have experience from the Ganga or the Brahmaputra.
I understand that the Netherlands is also one of the member countries with the CDRI, Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. So what role and what contributions are being made by Netherlands there?
Yeah, so we're very happy to work in the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure together with India, and I would like to congratulate the government of India on their leadership. Because we see more and more water related disasters around the world as the climate is changing. Floods and droughts, you see it in the newspaper just recently in countries as Kazakhstan, Brazil, but also in Germany. So the coalition brings together different countries from the global south and the global north, and this is where India and the Netherlands work together to share knowledge with other countries in Africa, in Asia and in Latin America. The Netherlands contributes to the coalition specifically on urban water resilience, because we see the devastating impact of floods in cities on people's livelihoods, on people's sometimes loss of life, and on making cities livable. So very happy to work with India through the coalition and with other countries on urban water resilience.
I understand that you're also doing a project with in Sundarbans. So can you shed some light and tell us some interesting facts about that project?
Yeah. The Sundarbans look very different than the Netherlands, but they're also a delta. No, it's really where the sea and the land come together. So we can use a lot of our experience of the Dutch delta in the Sundarbans as well. Because we see with sea level rise, with changing climate, there's really a challenge to protect the coast, but also to work with nature and not only against nature, because the force of water, the force of nature is so strong that you can't just say, okay, we're fighting it, we're keeping it out. So what we're doing with the government of West Bengal is really looking at how to design, how to build and how to operate grey infrastructure and green infrastructure to make sure there's coastal protection and to make sure that the coastal zone of the Sundarbans is managed well for the people who live there, the farmers who grow food there, but also for the environment, so that all these stakeholders can get the benefits from water management that they deserve.
Could you shed some light on some of the key projects or initiatives under SWP which have made tangible difference and impact on ground when it comes to water management in India?
Yeah, we're very excited with the initiatives we've taken together with state governments and with the union government and also with different stakeholders, because I think we have real results on the ground, and that's why we're doing these partnerships. So if I look at the Strategic Water Partnership, one thing I'm very excited about is the work that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands financed on water quality at tanneries in UP. Tanneries are big users of water and they also are big polluters of water. So if you actually work with the owners of tanneries to use less water and to put less toxics in the river, you really make a big difference. So with an international civil society organization, we worked with many of these tannery owners and really made sure they use less water, 30% less water now, and also do less pollution. Another example of what we're doing is working with Kerala on coastal protection. Kerala faced some really bad storms and had some floods. So what do you do for that? On the one hand, you need to see where do you do your infrastructure, where do you need grey infrastructure, where can you use nature-based solutions, but also how do you manage your basins and how do you integrate water into spatial planning. So that's another very exciting example of how our Strategic Water Partnership creates results on the ground.
Now, as we come to the end of this interview piece, I would like you to please give one message for the readers of Water Digest and for the viewers of WD News. There we go.
Water connects people, and I think that's really visible in our Strategic Water Partnership between the Netherlands and India. We're very different countries. The Netherlands is a temperate climate, we're a small country, we're a delta country. And India feels like a continent, very large, with lots of economic development. So water is a connection and we need to let knowledge flow like water. Because if we all reinvent the wheel and come up with solutions in isolation, it will take decades or centuries to solve our water crisis. But if we learn from each other and we cooperate, I'm sure we will all become better water management and will face our water crisis in the years to come. So I look forward to a great cooperation and to a long-term strategic water partnership between the government of India and the government of the Netherlands.